Hello and welcome to Access Asia. Coming up in this edition, without a baby boom in China, a demographic crisis looms. Long gone is a one-child policy and couples are encouraged to have as many children as possible, but still, the birth rate hits an all-time low. And the future of the world's oldest monarchy in Japan is uncertain. We'll take a look at the lineage, the laws, and the debate in the country. And Indonesia is home to one of the world's most preserved nature wonderlands, a coral reef off the Raja Ampat archipelago. Join us as France 24 takes a dip. But first, family and friends are still looking for loved ones in Kazakhstan. At the start of the year, what had long been seen as one of Central Asia's most stable countries suffered its worst crisis ever. Rising fuel prices eventually led to riots and a bloody crackdown. Thousands were arrested, hundreds were killed. There have been calls for the international community to pressure Kazakhstan to open an independent inquiry into what transpired. France 24 sent our Moscow correspondent Elena Valenchin to find out more.
In front of Almaty's central morgue, the atmosphere is tense.
Снимать нельзя здесь. Уберите камеру. Уберите камеру.
These people are looking for the bodies of their loved ones who disappeared in early January. This man has lost his 18-year-old brother. He thinks he recognized him on one of the videos from inside the morgues that are circulating online.
8 дней мы искали его и не могли найти. Стрелял профессионал, потому что рядом с ним то, что все умерли, они все в голову получили по пуле. Либо в голову, либо в сердце.
After the protests descended into riots, the security forces received orders to shoot live ammunition. According to the official version, the Central Police Department suffered 27 attacks by so-called terrorists.
Это был действительно бой. Они использовали боевое оружие, у них были автоматы, боевые гранаты. На крыше этой многоэтажки у них базировалось несколько снайперов, которые были уничтожены.
As proof of these attacks, the Almaty Police Department provided this video to journalists. It shows a huge crowd observing a few individuals armed with cudgels trying to set fire on the door of another police station.
Президент Такаев давал приказ стрелять на поражение. Вы допускаете, что могли быть жертвы от действий правоохранительных органов среди мирного населения?
Нет, такую мысль мы не допускаем.
Kalas Nurpisov was among the activists who seized Almaty's airport before Russian troops and their allies took back control of it. The day before our interview, police came to his home.
Мои золотые изделия рассматривают, которые потом в ходе обыска они изъяли. Еще у нас небольшое сбережение было, $500 тоже изъяли.
Вот именно правоохранительные органы провоцируют народ. До этого провоцировали. Сейчас провоцируете.
Calm has returned to Kazakhstan, but arrests of activists continue. The regime appears determined to crush the nation protest movement.
The birth rate in the world's most populous country, China, fell for a fifth consecutive year to hit a record low. The population is aging, their workforce is shrinking. Despite ending the decades-long one-child policy, the baby boom officials had hoped for never came to be. The rapidly changing demographics foretell a crisis that could undercut the country's economic and social stability. Selena Sykes and Yinko Yatade have more.
It's bath time in this maternity ward in Shanghai. At the moment, there are 11 newborns. Over the years, midwives have seen the number of babies drastically drop as China's birth rate falls to its lowest since records began in 1949.
I would like to see more children here. I hope young people will have more babies, but it's not the case.
China ended its one-child policy in 2016, first allowing families of 2 children before increasing it to 3 last year. But the birth rate is still continuing to fall. China recorded 17.8 million births 5 years ago, compared to just 10.6 million in 2021. Beijing is desperately trying to reverse the downward trend with incentives for parents, including making maternity leave longer.
We've gone from 4 months to just over 5 months of maternity leave. That should boost the number of births.
Huan Yangting has recently had her first child. The new mother has already decided she doesn't want any more.
Today, the government is encouraging us to have more children. But our generation is already under so much pressure at work. And having 2 children also costs too much money.
While previous generations who wanted to have big families were prevented from doing so, decades of the one-child policy have made single-child households the norm. With the cost of living on the rise, most couples who grew up as only children are now opting to do the same in their own families. The marriage rate in China is also on the decline, while increasing numbers of women are delaying childbirth and putting their careers first.
In my work, our 30s are important. So if I pass up on opportunities now, I risk missing out completely.
With a falling birth rate and an aging population, China is facing a demographic crisis. Experts predict the population could halve in size by the end of the century.
Japan recently held its traditional coming-of-age ceremony for people who have turned 20, the age of maturity in the country. Among Japan's 1.2 million new adults is Princess Aiko, the only child of Emperor Naruhito. As an adult member of the imperial family, she now takes on various public duties. But the future of the world's oldest monarchy remains uncertain. For more on this, Yuka Royer joins me. Hello to you, Yuka.
Hi.
Japan's imperial family is shrinking. Have any concrete steps been taken?
Well, the short answer, is no. Successive governments have been procrastinating, even though the imperial family is facing an existential threat. Now, the current Emperor Naruhito has only one child, that's Princess Aiko, but the next in line to the throne is his younger brother, and then his 15-year-old son. There's no one else eligible in the younger generation, and that's because under the current law, imperial successions can only occur through the male bloodline, or the paternal bloodline, if you like.
Well, that raises a question. Can this law be changed to allow a princess to ascend the throne?
Well, that's the debate that's been going on for the past 20 years. Now, for conservatives, this male bloodline is absolutely essential. It's supposedly been unbroken since the very first emperor, as you can see there, Shimu. It's a legendary figure who is said to have ruled Japan about 700 years before Christ. Now, throughout history, there have been a few empresses, a few women on the throne, but they all married their cousins back in the day, so the male bloodline was maintained. Nationalists claim that an empress could be manipulated or influenced by her husband if she marries a commoner or outsider. But the problem is there's not much left of that bloodline. In the past, emperors had more offspring than today, thanks to official concubines, but that's, of course, a bygone custom. Japan's defeat in World War II led to the abolition of its aristocracy outside of the immediate imperial family. And today's princesses must become commoners themselves if they marry commoners. So all in all, this means that the family keeps shrinking, as you said. In the early 2000s, though, a serious debate was launched on whether to change the law to allow women to ascend the throne, but that came to a halt in 2006 when the first prince in over 4 decades was born and when conservative Shinzo Abe became prime minister.
So it sounds just like more of the status quo.
Well, the debate has continued, though, but really got nowhere. As late as late last year, only a few weeks ago, a panel of experts concluded that it was too early to take any drastic measures that would change the system and recommended to keep the debate open for either allowing women to take the throne or reinstating former aristocrats. Now, conservatives prefer the second option, but many see it as unrealistic. Public opinion has been largely in favor of the first option. But one thing is certain, whoever marries that young prince will come under enormous pressure to produce male heirs. The current emperor's wife, Masako, has suffered mental illness for years because of this, and her mother-in-law also had a mental collapse once because of the pressure. And with remaining princesses all becoming adults now, time is really running out to change the law to at least allow them to stay within the imperial family once they get married.
All right, Yuka, thank you very much. France 24's Yuka Royer. The World Wildlife Fund says the richest coral reef on Earth lies in Indonesia's waters. It's part of the Raja Ampat archipelago. Nestled between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean, the area has been described as a species factory. Take a look.
Nestled away in Indonesia's West Papua province lies a piece of tropical heaven, Raja Ampat. The archipelago is made up of over 1,500 islands. It is one of the most well-preserved areas on the planet. The cluster of islands is home to 50,000 people, including Dovinus Awam, a diving instructor.
I love living here. The nature in Raja Ampat is just so beautiful.
Before the pandemic, diving enthusiasts from all around the world would visit the island.
Divers would come from Germany, the UK, Portugal, and even the United States.
On land, the archipelago may offer breathtaking views, but the real paradise lies under the sea. Raja Ampat's waters are home to more than 1,400 fish species, like stingrays and several types of sea turtles. Its reefs are some of the richest in the world, a title perhaps only possible because authorities were able to establish protected marine areas here. The zones, which cover some 4.6 million hectares, are intended to prevent human exploitation. Since the early 2000s, there has been a total ban on dynamite blast and intensive fishing. This islander is looking to the next generation.
Children, we need to take care of the sea, because in other countries they don't have any coral left, but we do.
He visits schools to teach children about the consequences of pollution. The students go underwater to witness the damage themselves.
You should pay attention to the coral reef because it's where the fish live.
Raja Ampat's isolation from the rest of the world is its greatest defense against exploitation, but there is fear that its pristine coral reefs are increasingly becoming a tempting target.
And finally, ostriches are flightless birds, but that doesn't mean they use the roads. Of course not, at least not usually. But take a look at this. Over 80 ostriches escaped a local farm in southern China and ran wild. Police helped round up the bounding birds at the end of the excursion. Good news, no injuries were reported. That's it for this edition. We'll leave you with these images. Thank you for watching, and please stay tuned to France 24.
Move to the rhythms of Africa. The Africa Cup of Nations from January 9th to February 6th on France 24.